I've heard it thrown around a lot over the years that the weight doesn't matter, and that you should just focus on movement so that you can avoid wear and tear on the joints. So let's be clear for a second, if the weight didn't matter, why do all the biggest and strongest people tend to lift the heaviest? And for the people worrying about your joint health and getting older, don't worry, we'll cover that in a bit. Because in today's video, we're gonna break down why lifting heavy is not just okay, but necessary for building muscle, strength, and overall health. Especially if you are a natural or not on steroids and you wanna stay strong and pain-free for life. My name is Mason. I'm an online coach and natural bodybuilder who specializes in helping you go from I used to I can. The reason I'm so passionate about staying healthy and aging like a bottle of Chateau Petrus, I don't know if I'm saying that right, is because I've never found it appealing to get strong and useful for my family for just a short period of time. I've got a 6-month-old daughter and I want to be able to pick up and carry her out of danger here in 25 years when the country finally falls to the lizard uprising. I've also got a super sexy wife, so you know I gotta stay in tip-top shape so that I can compensate for my other qualities. The point is, we don't want just a little bit of muscle. We want to be strong and able-bodied for our entire lives, and we want to look awesome and feel awesome doing it. If you're like me, you've had your fair share of injuries. First it was my back in high school, then it was my shoulder in college, and most recently my ankle a few years back. All of these setbacks taught me something. And when your weakest link breaks, you break. My back was the worst, but each injury kept me from doing what I loved doing. It kept me from being the man that I want to be. As the years went by, more and more things piled up. Achy elbows, popping knees, and the list goes on. My first thought was the same as everyone's. I just need to take a step back and not lift so heavy. Or maybe even stop lifting altogether. Is it even worth it? If it's so risky, why do it at all? Save your joints. But that doesn't make sense, and that mindset will set you back for decades. I want to clarify the fact that lifting heavy does not ruin your joints over time. The wear and tear that people often refer to comes from poor technique, poor programming, and neglecting the work that's going to keep you moving well. People who don't lift, people who stay away from lifting heavy, they aren't healthier. They're weaker and they're in more pain. And the people who lift with ego, haphazardly, without any regard to technique or future joint health, they burn out or they get snapped up. But we are smarter than that. We train to enhance our entire lives, not just for short-term goals. The reason for my injuries wasn't the lifts that I was doing, it was the lifts I wasn't doing. When I threw up my back, I was avoiding deadlifts and anything from my posterior chain, really. Not hitting my hamstrings, not hitting my glutes, and that became a real problem when I tried to lift something heavy. When I hurt my shoulder, I wasn't doing near enough for my rear delts or my lats, so all the bench pressing I was doing was just making me further imbalanced and less supported. And my ankle was just a careless lack of calf or tibialis training. Strength protects you. When you lift heavy and with control, your cartilage thickens, your ligaments and tendons adapt, and you become more resilient as a whole. That's why it's annoying to me to see all of the low volume stuff being pushed lately. First, Mike Menzer blows up by recommending people do 1 set per body part like 40 years ago. Mike Israel won't shut up about the stimulus to fatigue ratio, and now Jeff Nippard releases a new 6 set per week per body part program, which is just ridiculous. I'm not saying you can't make good progress doing a program like this. In fact, I've done it myself. What I'm saying is less is not more. More is more. Just like Rispiana used to say, the more you put in, the more you get out. And before you comment something about overtraining, for the average person trying to get fit, undertraining is the problem, not the other way around. I live in the United States, and here the obesity and mortality rates are not going up because we are doing too much. We need to do more. Stop shying away from the work. And if you're worried about overtraining and you're not an elite athlete or a genetic defect, sleep more and eat more. That's it. In my last video, I introduced the Big 5 and my strength standards that I set for them. And I want to bring up some of the comments that were made about certain points, starting with this one. I'm very fond of these discussions and I think your take is pretty good. I would just add a couple of things though. As a reference, I'm 26, 5'10", 215 pounds. Okay-ish lean. Nice work. Fully raw, no belt, no sleeves, no wraps, etc. Love it. Squat 380, deadlift 460, bench 300, overhead press, strict as F, 200 pounds. Nice. Chin up at body weight 90 pounds. Curl 140. Yeah, strong dude. If we were talking about longevity, which we are, I'd like to add that being strong with barbell isn't sufficient by itself. And I would agree. There's other exercises that you need to do in order to keep yourself in check rather than just doing the Big 5. As you can see, I have a weak lower body because I kept injuring myself despite a good training structure. I'm gonna stop you right there. You don't have a weak lower body because you keep injuring yourself. You keep injuring yourself because you have a weak lower body. Now, I don't know just from this comment, but I would anticipate that's a problem with programming. Most of the time when you snap yourself up, it's because your body is not ready for what you're throwing at it, so you gotta get it ready. Self-explanatory, I know it sounds stupid when I say it, but you look at someone's training over the years and you can really start to see these things. And also, my upper body has never been as stiff and slow as it was when I did a lot of overhead press. I've managed to gain back a healthy body by doing a more open-minded approach to working out. Now, same thing here. I don't know exactly what you're doing with your training, and I don't know your exact technique on overhead press, but from my personal experience and my working with clients, I've found that anytime you get better at the overhead press, usually your shoulder health improves. It doesn't get worse. It does wonders for shoulder health, especially if you're doing the overhead press the proper way, going through a full range of motion, pausing at the bottom, and completely locking out at the top. But like I said before, there are other things you can do in conjunction with this to make sure that your shoulders stay healthy. Don't just do overhead press. What's missing is some sort of cardio work for your heart. I agree. Some explosive work, okay, like burpees, kettlebell clean and press, sprints, etc., as our muscles have built a mechanism to store and release energy. Now, I disagree with that. If you're training the big five properly, you should be doing them explosively, but under control. I don't like burpees. They're a combination of a squat, a jump, and a push-up, and I just think that those exercises are better done together. Unless you're the type of athlete that needs to be able to get on the floor and get up quickly, then I can see some merit, but personally, I don't like them. Kettlebell clean and press. Why do that when you clean and press the barbell from the floor to do your press? I think it's important to do your pressing from the floor for that reason. Pretty much makes any other clean and press inferior when you do them that way. Now, sprints, I do like. I think sprints are awesome. I might make a video about that in the future. Some mobility work, like Jefferson curl, splits, shoulder stretches, etc. More mobile body means less chances of injuries, thus not losing any time by recovering from them. I like that. Yeah, that's where a lot of the supplemental work would go with the big five, is working on the mobility, especially with things like the rotator cuffs in the shoulders, and then other things like hamstrings and lower back. And then some coordination work, like kettlebell complexes or hitting the bag, etc. The muscles are useless if they are not coordinated. Oh, I would agree with that as well. Especially if you're an athlete, you need to be practicing your sport in conjunction with doing these lifts. A lot of people used to say that lifting made you worse at your sport. I completely disagree. I think it can make you a more robust athlete, but that is if you keep up with your technical skill work. The next comment addresses having a strength standard on principle, but there's something I want to address about it as well. Sorry, I simply cannot agree on a universal standard for lifting. At a body weight of 150, I can add 100 pounds to my chin-up, but I'm nowhere near a 300 plus pound bench or a 200 overhead press. My goal is to stabilize at 160 to 170 body weight, and we'll see from there. For me, growing muscle has been a constant struggle for many years, so I can see myself completing part of the standard relatively easy, and other parts being far too beyond my reach. Although I understand where you're coming from. So yeah, that's why I didn't put a weight cap on my big five. If you're 150 pounds, you may be able to do a 100-pound chin-up, but you're gonna have to put on some more muscle in order to hit the other numbers. If you don't somehow, if you stay at 150 and you hit all of those numbers, first of all, I'm gonna be extremely impressed. But that's kind of the point of the standard, where you can be noticeably muscular, people will look at you and know that you lift just standing around in clothes normally. Now, I'm not saying 160 pounds isn't impressive, but you're gonna have to put on a little bit more mass in order for people to look at you and think that you lift. Now, as far as the rest of the comment goes, I wanna challenge you that you are capable of hitting those other numbers. Don't limit your mindset here. You're stronger than you think you are. And for those of you who leave comments like this, I really appreciate it. It's always been super cool to me that you can kind of develop a community online on platforms like this. And I think we're starting to do just that, which is super cool. I really appreciate it. But back to the topic. Muscle, strength, and resilience are not built by comfort. They're built by demand. Heavy lifting forces the body to adapt with stronger muscles, denser bones, and more robust joints. So regardless of where you are, if you feel like your strongest days are behind you, it's time to rebuild. You don't need to stop lifting heavy. You need to start lifting right. If you have questions about how, stay tuned for my next video or hit the link in the pinned comment below, because that's exactly what I do with my clients over at Inspires Fitness. We train heavy, we stay pain-free, and we get strong for the people we care about. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching, and let's get under the bar.